everyone, welcome back to another episode of the PSA podcast, one that has been in the planning for a few weeks, one that the people of Mourne have been asking about for a long time. We're delighted to have on the podcast former QPR player Richard Graham. Richard, you're very welcome.
Nice to be here, Matthew. I've been looking forward to it since you invited me. Hopefully it's as exciting as you make it out to be, but yes, I've been looking forward to it, so I'm ready to get started.
Good. And you're home for a couple of weeks. What's it like being home again for a few days, relaxing?
Always great to get home. I live in London quite centrally, so it's 100 mile an hour every day. So to come back here, and I mean, sometimes I think as kids we took it for granted what we've actually got on our doorstep. So we've been up the mountains, swimming in the sea, anything, you name it, Newcastle, we've been everywhere, so I've really enjoyed it, and the weather's been great. I come for a few days, the beginning of July when the heat wave, or middle of July, and it was great, so yeah, having a good time.
Fantastic. So Ricky, I just want to take you back, to the start of your football, to your earliest memories, probably playing down the park or playing out on the local pitch, whatever. What's your earliest memories of playing, and how did you get involved in the game and stuff like that?
I think we were blessed that we had Rooney Park. The football pitch was everything to us growing up. It was always full of kids playing football. Obviously, people know I've got older brothers, and that's all we used to do. Whether it was summer holidays, coming home from school, always remember climbing the green gate, we used to call it, and it's just like a cliche, the jumpers maybe were thrown down as corner flags, and I used to invite so many kids from my class in school, especially in primary school, to come and have a football day on Rooney Park, and we just loved it. And then it was, I think there was even games on in the evenings, and there was times we would have skipped dinner, we'd have been called in, we'd say no, and we'd just been playing all day down that park. And that was the early memories, and then obviously a great friend of ours, I would more call him family, Rodney McBride. And he's dearly missed. Rodney used to arrange so many games of football. I remember sort of around probably when I was about 13, 14 or 12, 13, let's say, heading up to Newry Street with a team, going over to the Scrog Road. He actually invented these little tournaments. I remember one summer it was just knocking the door maybe 9 in the morning, up to the Abbey. They used to have football pitches up there. We'd maybe play Newry Street up there, then it would be in the afternoon down to the Esplanade where there was a tournament, and then finish a game of football in the evening in Rooney Park. So to talk about living and breathing football as a kid, that is what I did. Football was my sort of thing, and and it was in my family. My dad's a very good footballer, or he was a very good footballer. Of course, Mark and Ian and even Andrew there. I'm sure if he had come across the water, he would have found some club. But so early memories was just football non-stop. Not so much being told how to play, like coached, but just constantly playing. I know our neighbours in Rooney Park used to get annoyed at us because we had that that football pitch at the bottom, but we used to use the car park, and there was a pinned goal on a wall, and we used to play a game of squash constantly, knocking the ball off the wall back and forward for hours, until a sign was put up. No ball games, and then that used to become who can hit the sign. So it was just anything to do with football. That was definitely it.
So that was all very laid back and fun and enjoyment, and just street football kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I would say was my street foot. Yeah, no real coaching, just enjoying football. Just going back to Rodney, Rodney would coach you a little bit, not a little bit. He would, show you your positions, and the good thing about Rodney was he was always into playing out from the back, keeping the ball, getting lots of touches on the ball, so he enjoyed playing for his teams and stuff, and always had great memories of, even if you lost, as long as we played well or kept the ball, he wanted that kind of that way of playing, which you see now.
Yeah, it's very popular, isn't it?
Popular. So yeah, it was just really enjoying it. You just enjoy it as a kid, because that's what it was. From that primary school age, first year in high, it's just you're enjoying it. That's what you love to do. Get as much of it as you can, and yeah, very fond memories actually growing up. Childhood was great.
So then there obviously has to become a point where you realise, you're quite good at this game. When did you start kind of taking it seriously? When did you kind of think that I've got a bit of ability here, I could maybe make a bit of a go at this? Or
yeah, I mean, I've got to thank my dad for that as well. He really, he's seen the ability there, and he was pushing us, and like especially when it come to, let's say, the schoolboy time. I think the first time I really sort of thought, well, I'm not too bad at this, and it's a cousin of ours, Ross. We got picked for the South Down team. South Down. We had to go. South Down. It might even been. We stayed in Coleraine for a couple of nights. It was the Northern Ireland. It was the
Milk Cup, was it?
No, not Milk Cup. Northern Ireland under 12s, let's say, or. And I just remember finding it quite easy in among this sort of South Down of, let's say, this area. South Down, I think they called it. And I remember them making me captain, and I was quite surprised at that, because you from Kilkeel, you not really ventured out of Kilkeel much to do with football, and now you're meeting kids from, I think it was like Banbridge and these other towns, and I mean you always obviously are nervous as a kid, but when they made you captain, and you kind of, oh, okay, and you're scoring quite a few goals and impressing them as well, you start to realise, actually I'm not, I'm getting quite good at this. And then it just was that progression then. And again, I mean, my brother Mark, that he was like the leading light for us, like he had done all this. So the progression for us was, the schoolboy trials coming up, under 15, so I got invited to them. And again, I think it was actually Mr. McGravy took me down to the schoolboy trial. They took me off after 20 minutes, and I come back in the car, and I was quite downbeat, and I was like, I've messed that up. And he was like, what's wrong, and I was like, took me off after 20 minutes, hasn't gone too well. And I got the phone call later that evening saying that you had made the last 20, because supposedly I'd played against someone that they had in mind for the team. So, it was...
In them 20 minutes, you'd done enough?
I'd done enough in them 20 minutes, because I think some of my schoolmates would tell you I was a bit greedy as a young kid. So I didn't really pass the ball much. But yeah, that's when I sort of realised. But that's getting to that age anyway, where you're starting to think, it's starting to get serious. Am I going to, think about doing what Mark's maybe just done, or thinking about having a career? And again, I was obsessed with, I think Mark used to go down to Belfast 3 times a week. We didn't have a car. So all those people in Kilkeel that, we used to give us lifts, and then me as well, we can only thank them for that. I used to stand and watch the schoolboys, Mark train for hours with a cup of soup, just constantly watching, thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to do this, getting a bus maybe at 7 in the morning from Kilkeel to Belfast to train at 10, and then come back, whenever.
Yeah, just whenever you go.
Local boys in Belfast were just running home, So there was a lot of sacrifice, and it was so enjoyable. I mean, you wouldn't change it. And then that's when the sort of the schoolboy thing happened then, and we played in the Victory Shield. So that was the first time getting a little bit of taste of maybe being on Sky TV. They showed it on Sky. And at the time, supposedly, we had quite a good side. Our schoolboys team, there was Aaron Hughes was in it. He went on and done really well. And yeah, it was exciting. It was, going to be on Sky TV at 15. They give us all the gear, the Adidas stuff, and I'm sure
the gear's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and then being at school, we're like showing off my Adidas. I'm sure my classmates were a bit sick of me coming in with Adidas. But yeah, that and again, you're asking me, did I feel then like, is this going to be a career for me? Do I think I have the ability? And I did. I found that that even in that schoolboy team, I found like, I would say easy, but I was meant to be there. Let's say I didn't feel out of place. I felt that if he's going to pick 11, I'll be starting, and I did. I started all the Victory Shield games. Didn't win a game, but started.
So you're still playing for Kilkeel at this stage?
Yes. So again, we didn't, never really, I wouldn't say chance, but never really sort of went down that road of maybe playing Irish League, youth teams, and again, I think that was just based on the travelling, included. And I'll mention again, like Mark, he done the same. He played for my dad's team, Kilkeel Athletic at the time, and it kind of worked for him. So at 14, 15, started playing for Kilkeel, the adult team.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is an experience. As a kid, you're playing on among men now, who, by the way, don't care that you're a kid.
Yeah, especially if you've got a bit of ability, they're probably, kicking the knife at you and whatnot. And
it helps you grow up quite quick on the pitch, even though I have the protection of my brother and Ian, and my dad played with me. So yeah, it was an experience, but it definitely helped. I mean, it was physical. It was, it was a good standard. The Newcastle League was a good standard. It wasn't like it was just some kind of, they call it Sunday League over in England. It wasn't Sunday League. People were athletic, fit, looked after themselves, most of them. And it was good level to be playing at 15, and like scoring goals. And I think we won, I always get mixed up, but I think with Kilkeel we won the league below the Premier, I think. I think it was. And then I played that next season before I went over to QPR.
So you're playing for Kilkeel, you're in regular with the schoolboys. How then did the move across the water kind of come then?
So it was we had to make a decision. So hand and heart, when I used to go on, so during your school holidays and stuff, you would head over to QPR on trial, let's say, playing with their schoolboys through the Easter holidays, things like that. I'm happy to admit homesickness was a big thing for me. Didn't like London, so my choice of club at the time was always going to be maybe based on Mark already being at QPR. But in hindsight, we had Glasgow Rangers used to take me and my dad over a few weekends to try and get me to sign. So they used to give my dad all the sort of luxuries and taking him around while I'm off training, seeing nothing, getting him to meet players, and we'd seen a few Old Firm games. I think it was 2 or 3 times. So Glasgow Rangers did offer me quite a nice contract at that time. And then I took a chance one time because, I don't know why, but we had a phone call, Tottenham, and it was from Pat Jennings, which obviously a legend, Northern Ireland legend. And Pat said, look, he had heard about me. He's already at Tottenham as, he was a goalkeeping coach. Would I be interested in coming over on a trial? He says he's already spoke to the youth development officer at Tottenham. So I said, let's give it a go. What harm can it do? And I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Tottenham. I done well in the training, so much in the training that they threw me into an under-18 game, youth team game, and I scored. And straight away they were like, look, we want to sort something out here. We want to, and we told them about what QPR had offered. So that negotiation went on for a couple of weeks, but QPR then sort of got whiff of that and were like, look, we'll offer Richard no YTS, doesn't have to do the youth scheme. We'll sign him as a professional at 17, so you don't have to do your youth scheme. Because when you would go over to QPR, the first thing they offer you is a 2-year youth scheme. So you just like anything else, you could be a carpenter, or it's based on a youth scheme. And they said no, we'll scrap that. We'll make him a professional at 17. So I was 17 on the 5th of August, so it coincided I only had to do a month YTS. Tottenham weren't so keen on that. Tottenham were more into, no, we want you to do 2 years YTS and we'll give you 2 year professional on top of that. Whereas QPR just went, no, 5 years pro straight. So you were kind of just like...
Did that swing it for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just, I think the homesickness, in my mind, I think I was always going to follow Mark, just based on that sort of homesickness. And again, QPR were, when I signed, the top London club. They finished 5th in the Premier League. That was ahead of Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. You know, they had fantastic footballers. Ray Wilkins, he was coming to the end of the career, but great footballer. Mark was enjoying it over there. You know, you had a Nigel Quasi coming through. Kevin Gallen was the next big thing in the Premier League. It was an exciting time at QPR. But then unfortunately, that season I went over, they got relegated, you know, so it become, you haven't signed for a Premier League club, you've just signed for a Championship club. Yeah. But again, at the time, it was still a big deal. You didn't really think of it that way. It was still QPR, Queen's Park Rangers, that club you had seen on TV, you were now signing for. You didn't really care if it was Championship, League One, whatever. You know, you'd signed your contract and you were sort of ready to go, you know. So, yeah, that was how it come about, really. And that was through Mark's same scout, Billy Smith. He obviously scouted Mark, and then Cummin was watching me in the Schoolboys, and it was just like a natural process with Billy. He was like, yeah, you know, he would take responsibility of scouting and then sending you over, kind of thing. But in them days, I don't know what it's like now. There were so many scouts around. I mean, you couldn't play a football match. I mean, we played a football match for Killaloe High School, and it was Mr. McGravy for me, actually, because he said he'd never won that. Like, we didn't really have football teams in the high school. He said he'd enter us in the Northern Ireland, Ulster, whatever it was, schools football when I was at the Schoolboys, just to give me some football in school. And I mean, I don't mean it was based on me, but it was, he wanted me to stay involved in that Schoolboy football. And we done really well. Yeah. We beat a team that was quite fancied, but we got to like quite deep in the competition, but we played, can't remember the school, but they beat us 12-0. And they had a few boys that were heading over to Man City, and there just happened to be a Man City scout there. Yeah. They were Championship at the time. So, you know, you got a Man City scout, oh, would you fancy it over? And you're like, nah, it's Championship, you know, you're palming them off, you know, you're just like, But I'm just, then there just seemed to be scouts all over the place. I don't know how it works today. But yeah, that's sort of the progression then from sort of enjoying football to then thinking, yes, this is going to be something I want to do then to the QPR move.
So you head over as a 17-year-old kid, is?
Yeah, 16.
And you probably were training a couple of times a week over here, 2 or 3 times a week. How did you adjust maybe to
I mean,
go full time in England? Yeah,
that was tough, but enjoyable. I mean, so went over at 16, and then I was 17 on August, so I went over July. And I think the adjustment was more Killaloe, London. It was, you know, I just remember my parents had been over for my brother's wedding and saying goodbye to them, because I was just left in a house with a landlady who I didn't know. And QPR had posted a travel card for the underground, and then I was expected to be
just be there.
Ealing Common train station for 10 o'clock the next day or something. And then again, that's where Mark comes in and he knows all the ropes. But that was a big adjustment. But yeah, the full-time thing, it was hard, physical, and it did take a little bit of time to adjust, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I would say that first year I went over, I was doing really well. I was, things were going really well straight away. And I think playing for Killaloe in among men helped me physically in among youth team boys.
Yeah.
So maybe the ability was there, but now the physical side in among those youth team lads was already there.
Yeah, because of your
playing with
in the
adults.
men's team.
Yeah, playing in among adults, being able to use your body that way.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped. The first pre-season I did with QPR, never forget it. They took us to, and it's funny, the school I work in now is just round the corner. It's called Hanger Lane Hills. And I remember we were took to the bottom of these hills. It's probably a bit old-fashioned now, training. And we were told just to sprint up these hills. And wasn't told how many we were going to do. You just had to keep going. But I remember after about 6, going down on my knees, hands and knees, and just, I don't think I can do this. And then feeling this big hand grabbing me by my training shirt, and it was Billy Bonds. It used to be West Ham. No hard man, Billy Bonds, great footballer. By the way, loved him as manager. Get up, young man. He goes, you didn't come the whole way from Northern Ireland to just lie on your belly. And it was the right thing to say to me at the time, because he was right. Yeah. What's the point of me coming over here and just sprawling on the ground in front of all these kids that are, youth team lads that don't know me. And it's a bad impression to give them that you're just, because we hadn't even played football yet. It was just straight into pre-season. So I'll never forget that, because it did. I went back down to the hill and I kept going, and then he gave me a big slap in the back after, because I told you, never give up, that kind of thing. So that was let's say a good experience. I can still remember it. So yeah, that was tough. But yeah, going back to the full-time football, most of the time you're playing football. So
you're doing what you love.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I know it's a cliche, they say it's the best job in the world, but it is the best job in the world.
Yeah.
You wake up, you're going to play football. You're going to play all these little training games.
Doesn't even feel like work.
No, never feels like work. And and I think sometimes, like telling that story about running up a hill, you look back and you'd run up 100 hills to do it again. Because you just need someone there and then to tell you that this is the best job in the world. Like this, you're playing football and getting paid for it.
What more would you want?
What more do you want? It was. So adjusting to full-time football. No, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think of it as like, oh, this is really tough. And then look forward to the games, the youth team games on the weekend, because you put on the real shirt, you wore the QPR shirt in a youth team game, and you might be playing Arsenal, Tottenham, and all of a sudden you feel like, you are a professional footballer, you're here now, you're wearing the kit. This is what you've been training for all week, and it was great. Really fond memories, it was really good.
So you had a good, successful time at QPR. So if you could just kind of talk through your progression through the club, youth team, did you kind of make it into the first team?
Yeah, like I just said, when I first went over, I straight away, I remember, I can't remember, but scoring quite a few goals for the youth team. And then Ray Wilkins was still manager. And I think it was about a month into the season, and I got a call to come over. So the way the setup is, you've got massive training ground, youth team have their pitches, first team have the better ones over there. I wouldn't say QPR's training pitch was anything like what you would see now, but as far as surface and areas, and it was a good training ground. They just Premier League, Championship. So yeah, I got a call to come over because the first team were doing like a pattern of play, where the attack play against the defence. And in the first couple of youth team games, I was playing centre midfield, because that is where I wanted to play. I wanted to be a centre midfielder. But even in the schoolboys, they pushed me out wide, because my attribute, let's say, was to dribble past people. That's what I like doing. But from midfield in the youth team at QPR, I was doing it and scoring. And then they changed my position slightly. They pushed me more forward and give me this sort of like free role.
Like a number 10?
Yeah, that kind of like no man's land position. So they've called me over, the first team, to like a pattern of play. I was like maybe a month in, and I was so like nervous. I was like, oh, what's this? You know, what's he want me over here? What have I done? First thing you're thinking, what have I done? And then, because I was very quiet then, I didn't really know anybody. Well, I did know people, but being called over to the first team was a bit like, oof, you know, what's this kind of thing. But I remember Ray Wilkins saying, look, I want you to play out wide left and just run at the fullback. And so that's what my intentions were. I'd get the ball, dribble. But I was soon put in my place, because, you know, professional footballer, adult, is not going to let a kid come over and start just dribbling past. I forget who it was, but they let me know that you're not coming over here, you know, to do that. So I was soon put in my place that way, and I realised there and then, because you always have this expectation of first team players when you're like in the youth team, that they'll help you. Oh, you know, they'll coach you.
They maybe let you dribble past them.
No chance. They don't want to be
made a fool of.
And to be fair, I didn't. I never got a kick, but it was still quite a thing to be called over. And unfortunately, then I think a month later, Ray Wilkins lost his job. But there was still that feeling that you could always get called over any time. But as far as the youth team was going, I was scoring a lot of goals, and as a youth team, QPR again had a sort of reputation of always having good kids. So when we would play an Arsenal or a Chelsea, there was an expectation of us to maybe, you know, beat Arsenal, let's say, at that time. This was before I think Arsene Wenger come in. And I think then, through the youth team, I think QPR was the first academy, because they started taking kids from sort of all over the country, and there's boys coming. We took a boy from Arsenal at the time. So it was a very good youth team, but that first season in the youth team, I think I scored maybe 17, 18 goals from midfield against, you know, like players that you were then hearing at the weekend had been pushed on into the first team. I think Ashley Cole was one of them. He had played a few games against us, and then all of a sudden you heard he was at Crystal Palace on loan, playing in their first team. Yeah. You know, so it always gives you that belief then, like, oh, the times, you know, it's close. You're not far off it, you know. And then again, the second season, then, because I was only 17 the first year, so you had the first and second year YTSs. So again, in the second year, it was going well in the youth team, and getting called over the odd time to join in with the first team. We used to play reserve team football, and they had their own league, the reserve league. And I think I've heard recently that Brentford have went back to this and scrapped an academy. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But what it allowed you to do was you would come up against maybe first team players that are coming back from injury or haven't been getting in the team and need a game. So it was played at a non-league ground, QPR's reserve team games called Harrowborough. And I always remember this game because it was the first time, it was the first couple of weeks where Stuart Houston and Bruce Rhea had come in as new management, and they were former Arsenal assistants, or they'd been involved in Arsenal. So we were playing Arsenal, and I don't know how it come up, but me and my brother, Mark, was asked to play in midfield together, central midfield. And I always remember seeing you always got the little match programme, and seeing Ray Parlour, David Hillier just always comes to mind. I think he was actually a good player at Arsenal. There's a few other ones in there. I think they had a few first team forwards, maybe a Kwamia or something like that. But me and Mark had a very good game that night, and we beat them 3-1 or 3-0 or something. But I always remember, because I hear Ray Parlour on Talk Sport all the time. So that was a really good night. And then there's been other times we'd play against a Chelsea, and you had a Frank Sinclair, or I remember playing, oh gosh, what was his name? Maybe it was Frank Sinclair. Could not get past him in a Chelsea reserve team game. Too strong for me. It was waste of time for me. Jody Morris played a lot, Chelsea reserves. So these games were like brilliant because, again, it was the next step to feeling like, yes, you knew it was a reserve game, but if you'd done well in the reserve game against, like a Ray Parler who had untold appearances, you thought, well, can I get in this QPR first team? Based on that. But obviously, it didn't happen that time. But yeah, they were great experiences. In a way, I wish they had kept that system, because after that season, they brought in the academies, which allowed me then to play under 19. So at 19, 18, you were now playing back sort of youth team games, let's say, under 19s. So yeah, that was a really good experience. So yeah, those first couple of years were really good for me, as in I had that feeling that I was getting closer. I remember then the first pre-season under Houston and Rioch, little rumour spread around. The kit man asked me my size and stuff. So because they would get you a tracksuit, they would get you training kit, and they were heading somewhere. And then the kit man come back to me in a couple of hours and goes, "Oh, sorry, they don't." And then he sort of whispered to me or something. He goes, "Oh, it was Bruce Rioch." He says, "You're too light or something, too small or something like that." So that didn't happen then, but you still had that feeling that. And Stuart Houston, I enjoyed Houston and Rioch. Rioch was quite a military coach. He used to ask us things like, how high is the crossbar? And if you didn't know, he wouldn't be happy. That kind of, if you're going to be a footballer, you should know the height of a crossbar. But Stuart Houston was more down to earth, and really, if he seen you play, he'd give you a little bit of advice, or did the hand doing his hand movement. And nice guy, but again, it didn't work out for them. So the next thing was Ray Harford come in. So it become this thing at QPR where the management changes. It even made you feel it. I even feel like you feel like you're like, got to start again, got to start again. And it's like anything else. And what I learned through my career was, some managers just won't like you. And especially if someone is telling them, "Oh, we've got this, we've got that. Oh, well, I'll see for myself." And then you usually go fishing for your own, who do you like? Do you know what I mean by that? I'm not saying, I mean, if you stand out, you stand out. It wouldn't be an excuse, but it's a difficult thing when we had, so you go through, we had Ray Watkins, Stuart Houston, Ray Harford come in, Jerry Francis come in, Ian Dowie took over for a while, Vinnie Jones was a coach at one point. And it was like, those 4 or 5 years I was there, the amount of management, coaches, it became like a kind of an unstable club, QPR. We started signing players from, I think we brought in Gavin Peacock, John Spencer, fantastic footballers, don't get me wrong, but they were dropping down, they were dropping into the Championship. And I think, QPR were losing that Premier League status quite quickly because they weren't doing well in the Premiership. The Championship.
And just on the change of management, did you find that each manager had their own style and had their own kind of way of doing things? And
definitely.
You had to adapt, and maybe like the way you played suited one manager, but maybe didn't suit another? Or
100%. So, you had some managers liked playing out for, not so much playing out from the back, but encouraged playing football. Others were more direct. Others liked bigger players, especially forwards. So you had that big guy, small guy kind of thing going on, pacey, flicking headers. I think for me at QPR, and it's something I would advise younger kids on, is find a position. Find your position. Yeah, try them all out, but find your position. I think what happened to me at QPR, I remember Jerry Francis called me in to speak to me. And he, all managers, "Oh, I like you, and I know you've done well here, there." He goes, "I ain't going to give you a free role in the first team." He goes, "Where's your position?" And I promised I couldn't give him it. I could not give it. I said left wing. I'm not even left-footed because I like coming off the left wing.
Yeah.
But then you're putting yourself up against someone that's got a great left foot that can just bend the ball in, whereas I have to check back, and then you get the stop check, and put. And I kind of got lost a little bit at QPR, I would say. And again, it's not an excuse, but I didn't have a position. I found myself like just. Did I want to be a centre midfielder now? Don't have the height. Do I want to be a winger? Am I that quick? The way wingers were, the 4-4-2 system, like you said about systems, was get it wide, down the line, cross it, big guy, 2 forwards coming in. So yeah, there was a lot of changes of systems, changes of formations with different managers, and so, some suited, some didn't. It definitely didn't. I mean. So as those seasons went on, I mean, I travelled so much with the first team, and that was under Gerry Francis. So I knew he liked me, maybe, but I never seemed could find that final push to get into the first team. To just get over that line, to get those few games. It was always nearly there kind of thing. And it was actually when Gerry Francis left, it was Ian Dowie gave me the 2 appearances I had. And that was because Ian did like, footballers, but he said he wanted to change it up because the way they'd been playing was quite, mundane, people weren't enjoying it. He's going to throw me in there. He goes, just play where you want to play and, enjoy it and do what you've been doing, so he had a lot of confidence in me and Ian. I think I played a few, maybe half an hour against Wolves and then at home against Grimsby, but the team then was just, they were getting beat constantly every week. The draw at Wolves was like a celebration, it was, but that was the first time I experienced walking on the pitch, and you had Wolves, quite a big stadium, there's like 40,000. I mean, someone was shouting at me from there, I couldn't even hear them. I was just zoned out, and that was the first experience I had of that, being on the pitch as a first team player. But yeah, like I was saying, that consistency of maybe playing in the first team, I just couldn't get there, and I think back, and I think sometimes maybe everything come a wee bit too soon for me, as in maybe I thought maybe a bit of complacency was there, that I'd come over, everything had gone great, the next step was just...
It's just going to be not easy.
Hurry up and pick me and get me in there, I'm head at home at 1 o'clock while everyone else is still training, and that's the honest truth. I mean, physically I wasn't the biggest, and maybe that was something that would have got me over the line. Maybe I should have been in the gym, and again later in my career, that's what I realised, what you had to do. So I think somewhere at QPR I got lost up in the, thinking I'd made it as a professional footballer, but I wasn't actually playing on the Saturday or the Tuesday, which makes you a professional footballer. You're there to play in the first team, not reserve games, not youth team games. And you can score 50 goals in the youth team game, but if you can't make it into it, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's been I've played with some fantastic youth team players, honest, and they didn't make it either. So there's definitely something there where you have to have a bit of grit, a bit of, extra push within yourself. No one's going to do it for you. I always kind of expect it, maybe someone would do it for me, take me to the gym. No. I found out later, some of the youth team boys that passed me by, never at the gym. While I was going home to the digs, let's say, and maybe going and playing snooker, they were at the gym after training. And it shows, it definitely shows. And it more so today. You've got to be fit. If you're not athletic, you'll not make it in the Premier League. You just won't. So, yeah, that's not a regret, but it's something, and I would say it's more experience me at 24, when we'll move on to Barnet, me at 24, if I had been that 24-year-old as an 18-year-old, who knows? Who knows? Because I had a different mindset and a different sort of look on football, and knew exactly what you had to do to be consistent and stay and make sure, even the mental side. It's probably growing up, you have to be a man. And maybe it took me a little bit longer than, say, someone who already lives in London. Let's say that, I don't know, but yeah. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Hindsight, you know, we could all do lots of stuff with hindsight. But yeah, that was so. Following on with QPR, the end then came when the next manager came in, Ian Holloway, and I think QPR just got relegated to the first division. QPR went into administration. There was this whole scaremongering that QPR were going to fold. And again, through experience, you know QPR is not going to fold. Team in the middle of London, it's not going to fold. So I had 4 years left on a contract. Because I forgot to mention that I was only there a year at QPR and they offered me another 5 years. So I was doing something right. And we were a bit dubious of why so soon, but they said it was to do with the academy and money had come in from the academy. So I went from, you know, the first deal till a year in, they were saying, right, we want another. So I had I think it was 3 or 4 years left, or 3 maybe, let's say, when Ian Holloway took over. But he was having none of it. Like he definitely had his own vision, wanted his own players in. And I think in a way he probably seen that there's a lot of us had, you know, we've been there since we were 16, 17 with no first team appearances. So he's probably just he doesn't know me personally, and he's probably just looking like at a stat sheet going, no, you know, and he really did have to sort of cut the budget, let's say. So we got offered payoffs, and at the time, I mean, it wasn't a very good payoff compared to what the contract was worth. But my agent advised me to take it because he said, "Oh, you'll get a championship club, no problem. You know, it would just be a dawdle. Just take that, and I'll." So he tried to set me up with Luton Town. So that was when I left QPR. Was just a payoff. It was, and again, we talked about hindsight. That 25-year-old or 24 at Barnet would have said no. I would have said, you know what, Ian, I'll stay here and show you that whatever you bring in, I'm better than. And if anything, this is a great opportunity for me in a League One club to get my football career going again. You know, that's what I should have said. Yeah. But when you're told that you're not wanted anymore, you're kind of like, oh, I mean, what's the point of me being here? Yeah, what's the point of me being here? But I think in a way he probably wanted me to say, no, I want to stay. But when I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, if that's what you want. Yeah. So that was the end. That was the end of QPR. And it was difficult. When I think back, sometimes you don't, you know, I haven't really talked much about it, but you think back, you think, God, I've come the whole way, 16, and now leaving QPR, and no one at the club is advising me, is helping me.
And you didn't have like any club lined up? You
no,
were just
nothing.
Leaving and just whatever happened after
it was
that.
The end of the season, leaving. There's people I knew there for 5 or 6, well, 5, I think I was 21 when I left. Never got a phone call. Do you want me to speak to a few people, get you to another club? I mean, I wasn't an agent. So I just again had that mindset, oh, well, I'll leave QPR. Oh, ring Brentford, they're around the corner. Maybe go and play for them, you know. It's that silly naivety of like, yeah, it really was. I mean, that's all I can think of is that, yeah, let's just ring a few, you know. And then they'll look at my CV and go, what, no appearances? You're now 21, 20. You're not playing the youth team now. You've got to come play in our first team if we're going to pay you money. So that was a big shock. My agent lined me up with Luton Town, who were in the Championship. Stayed with them all of pre-season. Kept telling me, yeah, we're going to give you something. We like you, that kind of talk. It just didn't happen. In the end, didn't happen. They were trying to sign other players, you know, and I was just one of those sort of trialists that they might, you know, kind of hang around. Yeah, maybe not. And that was it really. I mean, that's when I started dipping my feet into non-league, because I took a little time out, just because it was like a shock. You know, you were now not playing, not working. Lucky you had the payoff, let's say, to continue your lifestyle for a bit. And yeah, it was tough, because all of a sudden you were just in London, not signed by anyone.
And did you think the dream was over? Or did you think that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of thought, is it now time to maybe go back, maybe sort of, you know, not give up. I wouldn't say I would ever give up, but yeah, it was maybe that time to head back. You've had a good shot at it, kind of thing. But then again, I mean, I keep mentioning, but Mark had already left QPR after quite a successful time now. You know, he played maybe 40-something first team games. He had already tried sort of League 2, League 1 or whatever, but ended up at, can't remember, but a non-league club that actually were paying good wages. You know, I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like, what? Really? So he got me down to a club with him called Billericay in non-league, and that's when the whole non-league thing started for me, which you'll see now it's on TV. Is it the conference, the nation? Yeah. It was just a real eye-opener, and I used to think to myself, why didn't I come on loan to these clubs or something? Why did I not, you know, when I wasn't getting in at QPR, why did I not maybe try a League 2 and say, look, can I go on loan or something? You know, it never really come around to do that kind of thing. But so the non-league sort of part of my career started. And if I'm being honest, at the beginning, I was kind of just dipping my toe in a wee bit. I was still unsure a little bit. I was a bit mopey.
Yeah.
Attitude wasn't great.
Like, kind of like, not I'm too good for this, but kind of like, this isn't really what I signed up for, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was always had that in the back of my mind, what am I doing here, kind of thing. But after the season there, it's so funny, football. A friend of mine is a massive QPR supporter, and his brother was at QPR with me, and he was playing for a non-league side called Kettering Town, and they were a big non-league side. They were getting over 1,000, maybe 2,000 fans a week. They're up near Northampton, and he had arranged for his testimonial. He had been at Kettering 10 years, and he arranged a testimonial match against who else but QPR. And Ian Holloway was still managing. So he said to me, do you fancy coming and playing? I've one space. You know, I was saying, oh, well, I'm the last you asked, but I had one space. And I said, yeah, why not? Why not? I'll come and play. And I just turned up, and I'm not boasting, but I had a really good game against QPR, to the point where there was a footballer at QPR, Paul Furlong, pulled me afterwards, go, speak to Ian, you should come back, you know. And I was like, no, it's just, I said, I'm not signed for these, I'm just playing. Yeah. So it was kind of taking me back to just playing again, you know, not thinking, what am I going to do next, what contracts, just playing football. Yeah. So that one game, then the Kettering manager was like, why don't you sign for us? Mm-hmm. You know, what do you want? You know, come and sign for us. And that definitely gave me a little bit of a push back into football, because Kettering had that, like I said, that fan base that when you walked out onto the pitch, it gave you a wee bit of goosebumps. You know, it was like you're back in a real football match, whereas the first sort of Billericay was like empty, you know, and you were just you weren't really enjoying it, but you were just doing it for the sake of it. But Kettering gave me that little like foot back in, going, actually I miss, you know, I want this, you know, I want to be back in football. And that's when I started training hard, because I was getting enough money from Kettering, but they were only training twice a week. Mm-hmm. So in between, I was never out of the gym. I was training hard, and that's the attitude I had then was, right, I don't want to stay in non-league. I want to get back into the reason why I come over here, to be a professional footballer. Whatever that league is, that I'm going to be training every day again, and football is what I'm going to be doing. And so I had a quite a good season at Kettering, and that's when a few things started happening. I had a phone call from Darlington, way up north. Don't know how they were watching Kettering. They were in League Two. I think there was Northampton maybe, or someone else. But I always, and that's when I got a phone call from Barnet. And I always, do you remember watching the teletext? Do you ever watch the teletext results? Yeah. We used to watch the teletext results, and we always had a Premier League club was your club, or but you always had a League Two club, and Barnet was always ours because they always done well. They were always sort of. So when Barnet called, when I got the phone call from Barnet, I was kind of like, this feels right, I was like, yeah, I could do with playing for Barnet. And then we had a friend, Dougie Freeman. He left QPR to go to Barnet and then had a real successful football career. And they seemed to be that type of club, Barnet, like a friendly League Two. Always seemed to develop players and push them on. So yeah, it was like, when the manager then was Paul Fairclough. Again, Barnet had just been relegated from League Two into the conference, and they were cutting their wage bill, trying to get rid of players that had been maybe loaned. Martin Allen had been the manager then, and he had loaned players out on quite big money for Barnet. And Paul Fairclough was doing this thing where he's England non-league manager, so he had a real good sort of what would you say, network of, he knew what he could get from non-league. So he got the likes of myself, and then Nicky Bailey, who went on and played for Middlesbrough. Dean Sinclair was picked up from Norwich's youth team. He was being released. You had who else? Quite a few, but there was already established players there. Like there was some really good footballers there, but he got that nice mix, and then I decided, I'm going to sign for Barnet, and that's when I would say was the most enjoyable part of my football career was Barnet, because I was putting in the hard work, as in gym, the attitude was right. I had that sort of mentality that this is what I want to do, and it was first team football. It wasn't kids youth team football anymore, and that's when the whole Barnet season started. So signing for Barnet again was, it was at the time it felt like it was the right move, and it proved to be the right move for me, because we went and won that year. We won the conference. I think we won at maximum most points ever at the time or something, or most goals scored or something. But when we talked about it at QPR, he had found a lovely position for me, Paul. And again, it's, what you said about management, if a manager likes you, he had signed me, Paul. He knew, he had watched me play, so he wasn't signing me, he wasn't going on the basis of someone else had told him. Yeah. Paul Fairclough had rung me up, had a few meetings with him to get to know me, and said, yes, we want to sign you, I've watched you quite a few times. So in his head, he had already had a team set up, the way he wanted to play. So we used to play a 4-4-2, but I hung out wide left. The three guys would come in the middle. It was unusual. He didn't want me coming back. He says, you just float around that left side. And then we had a wonderful right back called Ian Hendon, who could ping you a ball from right back. And the amount of times we used to score goals like that, because he would just ping it maybe 60 yards. I just wouldn't move, and it was a position where no one could pick me up really. They were a bit confused, the teams. So I just felt that this is right. Finally, I found a position that maybe suits the way I play football, and it just did. It did. I had a lot of assists. I was getting the odd goal, playing every game. and just winning football matches and really enjoying it. I mean, training was the way I thought it was going to be. It was so enjoyable. You know, we even played badminton in the morning. Paul was a bit like unorthodox manager, come up with these weird, I don't know if he was just doing it just to like keep us entertained, I don't know, but he set up badminton competitions for our reactions. I don't know. I think at that time, if he had told me to just, I don't know, jump off a plane, you know, you would just do it. But that was the whole group. He had us all zoned in. And I think that was part of why we were so successful as a team, Barnet, at that time. And that's why I was enjoying it so much. It was, and we were training hard. I mean, it was back being full time, but it wasn't going home at 1 o'clock anymore. It was in at 10, lunch at Barnet's little training ground, which was a leisure centre, and back out in the afternoon, or spin class from one of the instructors at the leisure centre, or swimming. It was 9 to maybe 4 o'clock, no more, wandering home at 1. And again, like I said about the pre-season at QPR, his pre-season, there was no running, all ball work. And I remember the first game of the season thinking, am I going to be fit? Because we'd just been beaten 12-1 by Arsenal, because Arsenal play Barnet every pre-season.
How did the Arsenal game go then?
Yeah, well, the Arsenal game was our first pre-season game, and like I said, we had done no running. It was strange to me, because I was expecting this hard pre-season, lots of running, you know. But again, you know, Paul had this sort of different take on football, that you got all your running within the games, and we did lots of that SAQ, ladders, hurdles. I think the most we ever done was some shuttle runs, you know. So we come into the Arsenal game, and when we seen the team sheets, it was like they had won already. It was the Perez was playing, Bergkamp. I think the only one missing in that game was Henry. I don't think he was there, but they had. I remember seeing who I was up against, Lauren, the Cameroon international. They had just signed Van Persie, and just to throw a name in. So he had just turned up, and that was the season Arsenal went unbeaten. So, yeah, so first few minutes, got the ball, cut inside, scored. So we were 1-0 up. So my debut for Barnet, let's say in our first pre-season game, was going really well, till about 10 minutes later, I think we annoyed them a bit, and I think it ended up being 12-1 or 10-12 or 10-1. So it wasn't a nice experience. But again, it kind of sort of let you know where you were in terms of, you know, this is Premier League football now in your conference, but, you know, you still were like, right, I want to get, not to that, obviously that level, but you were kind of showing up a little bit and said, look, you think you're fit or you're ready, but maybe you're not. So it gives you that push again to, like, even though it was Arsenal. But it was a great experience. I mean, you know, being on the football pitch with those kind of players at that time. I mean, someone said to me, I remember in the change room, they said, oh, you're lucky. You've got Perez your side. And I was like, why is that? He goes, he's not the quickest. Well, take that back. How deceiving was he? Couldn't get near him. You know, the way they played Arsenal. I remember taking a corner in the match. I took corners. And I made that unforgiving mistake. We hit the near post, you hit the front man, and they clear it. And by the time I got to the halfway line, they had scored. That's how quick they broke on us. So I was told at half time, please don't hit the front man when you take corners against Arsenal. But no, it was a great experience, and I enjoyed the goal. I mean, it was a good way to introduce myself to maybe the Barnet fans, scoring against Arsenal. And it was a nice way to, the defeat didn't matter. But I remember that pre-season as well, going through pre-season, we couldn't win a game. It was strange, we could not win a game, but yet there was no panic. I think within the team, there was a lot of confidence and kind of knew what we had, and just through pre-season was more just based on getting ready rather than winning games, if you know what I mean. So the Barnet season just started off with on fire, as in the team. I think we won the first game 6-1, and then we just went on this run of just kept winning. We weren't fancied to win the conference. It was well sort of advertised that Barnet had cut budgets and got rid of very good footballers that were already there. But it just become an amazing season. Everything just seemed to go in for us. Everything went really well. The football we were playing was really good. I think we went unbeaten for quite a while, because if I can remember, Arsene Wenger popped into the game at half time with us one, and I don't know if that's correct, but I think Barnet at the time and Arsenal, we were the only ones still unbeaten in our leagues, let's say. I think he jinxed us, but I think we got beat that Saturday. But that was quite nice for Arsene Wenger to come in. But yeah, things just went great for me. Getting a lot of assists, playing with some fantastic footballers, young, hungry. We were real hungry. And then we had a prolific goal scorer up front, Grazioli. He'd kill me for getting his name wrong. Grazioli was scoring goals like you'd never seen before. So yeah, my first season at Barnet was fantastic, and that was probably the best. Yeah, that was the most enjoyable and best time I had of football, was my time at Barnet. Even though then, a few injuries popped up, but no, I really enjoyed it. Felt like we talked about, like being a professional footballer. That's what I've come over here to do. And everything was going great, and then you had these little rumours that such and such want to sign you, and all that was happening, so you knew you were doing something right. So yeah, that went well. And then, do you want me to keep talking about Barnet?
Yeah, you got promotion from the conference.
So we got promotion from. So we ended up winning the league, got promoted. And then it was a matter of, could we do it in League Two, and we did to begin with. Like any team that gets promoted, you're still on that high. So we went into League Two, and I think we were top for a while. That's when I done my knee. Not saying that had anything to do with Barnet losing games or anything. In fact, I don't think I started the season as well as I should have. I did okay, but I wanted to really keep it going, because I did have another agent at the time was saying, there's a few clubs interested, and keep going. They want to see, can you do it in League Two? All this chat. So I had to get my cartridge. And funny thing is, here's a lesson for young kids: warm up, warm up before you even see a ball when you're going to play football, because we were doing a little circle like you do. And I've tried to be clever and do like some kind of skill, like a flip-flop skill, but my foot got stuck. I got this funny twinge in my knee, so we were called over, still done the warm-up then, and went to cross a ball with my left foot standing on my right, and it just went, just like that. And I was like, I'd never felt pain. I don't know what I'd done. And even the manager was like, you've just crossed the ball. But in hindsight, when I remembered, something went when I was doing that silly circle, and I tore my lateral, the outside cartilage, which is a little bit longer than, let's say, your inside, as so they say. So Barnet were like, look, it's not a big deal. Get the operation. We'll sort out the operation for you. You can be back. You can be back within 3 or 4 months, or 3 or 4 weeks, with a cartilage. But for some reason, my knee just wasn't having it. So I had the operation, it was torn, they clipped it off, sewed me back up, come back, had a week's rest, straight in the gym. They had me in, maybe that was too early, but that knee was never the same. And I think it took me 6 months to get back from a cartilage operation. Still don't know why, because it was supposed to be just a simple thing. Supposedly, maybe I was back in the gym too early, got a lot of bone bruising around where the cartilage was removed. So yeah, that held me back quite a bit at Barnet, that knee operation. So when I did finally come back, it was a matter of building up again, getting a few games. So I played quite a few League Two games, but I felt that I'd lost something. I felt like I just wasn't there yet. And then again, you realise when you hear about players coming back from injury, sometimes it can take a season when you've been out for nearly a season to get back. But I was so sort of determined to get back to the conference winning season. You know, maybe I was forcing it a little bit. So I never really felt like I got back to where I should have at Barnet. But saying that, I did have a successful career there. I played a lot of games in League Two. So maybe it was just the level of the league. You know, you don't know. But, you know, when you look back, I had 3 years there of so many League Two football games, you know. So it was great. You know, when I look back, I think, yeah, I have no complaints about Barnet. I have no regrets at Barnet. You know, it was, I would say it's a successful time for me. Because if you're winning a league, any league, it's a successful time, you know. We had a great Carling Cup run. There is a regret. we drew Man United in the Carling Cup. And I remember Paul pulling me in and going, look, you've been around QPR and, you know, you've played a few big games. He goes, I wouldn't mind giving the younger kids a start against Manchester United. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I was like, he goes, you know, you definitely get on, you know, you'll definitely play. But our goalkeeper gets sent off after 2 minutes, or 5 minutes. So the whole dynamics of the game changed, and I never got on.
Was that at Old Trafford?
That was at Old Trafford, 80,000 fans, the full works. PK was playing. They didn't have a full side out, Man United, but PK went to Barcelona a couple of weeks after. You had quite a few, I can't remember.
Quite a few established players.
Banks, Blake, and people like that were at United, but you know, we're on the cusp of the first team, let's say. But still, I mean, I think they beat us 4-1, and I think we done quite well with 10 men. But I never got on. I never got on the pitch, so I was always a wee bit like, that would have been a wonderful experience. Yeah, so I should have fought a wee bit more on that one, I think, with Paul, and said, look, I won't. No, I want to play, because he did sort of ask me. He wasn't saying he'd already decided. So I just thought it was quite nice of him asking me. But yeah, I do wish I had been involved in that game. So I never got on, but warmed up on it and stuff. But great experience to be at Old Trafford, a Carling Cup match against Barnet, and it was still, I think, sold out. It was crazy. Wow. And they were not holding back on us as well. Alex Ferguson, you would have thought he was playing, you know, Arsenal for the title-winning game on us. That was, again, watching him, that was a good thing, maybe sitting watching him manage that team. It didn't matter that he had fringe players playing there, let's say. He was out to win, shouting from the sideline. Unbelievable. He wasn't just sitting there going, well, we're going to beat these. Yeah. It was kind of still 100% focused, like he had his first team out there, and it was like, it was good to watch. It was like, because again, you always thought, oh, Ferguson will go easy on us, you know, we're just like League Two. Nah, not at all. So yeah, that might have been a little regret at Barnet, but
other than that, it was
fantastic.
It was probably your best year.
Yeah, and I mean, even now, I've been invited back. We did a similar to this, but on stage in front of all because they really have fond memories of that year, the Barnet fans, because I think they went into the conference in a real downer and didn't think no expectations, and then we, you know, come straight back up. And even now I can go back to Barnet, I've got a really good sort of relationship with that football club, which I wish I had with QPR, but didn't, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was a successful time for me, Barnet, definitely.
So then there's a couple of other moves, and you would say were you moving towards the end of your career?
Dagenham and Redbridge. So Barnet I think they felt that because I missed the season, I missed that season. They thought, look, you know, we want to keep you, you know, from what you've done here at Barnet. My contract was run out and they offered me 2 years. there wasn't much in this, let's say, in a wage increase. Maybe I should have stayed, maybe I shouldn't have. But Dagenham and Redbridge had just got promoted to League Two, and John Steele, the manager, had always sort of, he was one of these ones, had phoned me a few times, maybe, you know, trying to, when he was in the conference, let's say. So he always was an admirer of me, like, as a footballer. So he phoned up and said, look, we want to sign you a 2-year contract. You're, you know, again, full-time professional. They were turning professional then as well. So yeah, went and met him. He's a great guy, John Steele. And I had a great time at Dagenham. I really did. And I didn't play much at Dagenham. They had a certain way of playing, and he admitted it to me sometimes, that he wanted to try and change that way by signing the likes of me and someone else he signed. But their way worked. Mm-hmm. So if you're winning football matches, you're not going to change for anyone, you know. So Dagenham, yes, played a few League Two games for Dagenham, in and out, but had a great time. What a great bunch of footballers they were, and very down-to-earth football club. Training was brilliant. I mean, like, John Steele was a brilliant manager. So even though I didn't play much football there, I met a lot of good friends. Mm-hmm. I met a lot of friends at Dagenham. It's unusual in football sometimes, you kind of colleagues, but through Dagenham I met some good friends. And after 2 years at Dagenham, I was approached by another conference team who were still full-time. That was Grays Athletic. They were a full-time football club, and signed for them. Julian Dix, ex-West Ham, he was manager. And then that was the complete opposite of Barnet. I got relegated with Grays, which wasn't a good experience, but a massive learning curve in sort of, I don't know, trying to like play football and winning games without enjoying it. And then just, you were getting beat every week, which wasn't a nice experience. But you kind of fought every game, you know. It was like you were given all you could, but we just didn't have the group of players it just wasn't working, you know. So that wasn't a nice experience, getting relegated with Grays. And then that was it. That was the end of, let's say, full-time football. And that was maybe from 16. I left Grays when I was 31. So I did have 15, 16 years full-time. And then again, I dipped into a bit of non-league football again. And that's when my next step was coaching kids and in the schools and doing the PE. Because one of the non-league clubs, they're quite successful at the moment, Eastleigh, the manager of Eastleigh, or he was assistant manager, he owned his own company, sports company, that schools were now hiring these companies because they wanted the ex-professional footballers on, instead of like teachers doing the PE, to come into the school and use their experience and put on sort of like, I wouldn't say proper PE, but no more lining up for rounders, one hit after, so putting on proper sessions, not just in football but in sports. So he said, why don't you come and play for us and you can come and work for our company. So I'd done that, only part-time with the company, but got into Eastleigh. That was like Conference South, just below the conference. But then after Eastleigh, jumped into a team called Dartford and then won the Conference South, back into the conference. Mm-hmm. So that's when my age was starting to tell, because he wanted me to stay playing in the conference with Dartford. He offered me a new contract and I said no, because I didn't want to do the travelling. Yeah. So that's when you know you're coming to the end, when you don't want to travel to a Darlington or a Barrow FC, which is a 7-hour drive, on a Tuesday night when you might have worked the next day. So that's when I knew then, about 33, 34, I was just playing. I'll be honest, I was just playing. And I mean, again, I left Dartford then and played for St Albans, which is quite a big non-league club in England, and won a league with them. And I'd actually moved back into centre midfield where it all began. So, like playing at St Albans, it just, again, a club that suited me. I was just playing centre midfield like I did when I was 10, and I enjoyed it. And I was enjoying football, just playing part-time again, and then sort of, you just see it out, don't you? Because once you don't want to play too long, because once you stop being able to do the things that you enjoy, then it becomes not a nice thing to do. So I think I finished then at my last club was St Albans. What was I, 35? I'm giving my age away here a lot. 35, and then finally the last bits of football was management. I just happened to meet Keith Rowland at a club near where I live called Wingate and Finchley, and he had just took over as manager. Keith used to be at Northern Ireland left back. Do you remember Keith? West Ham. Keith Rowland from Portadown. Good player, brilliant football career. And he just asked me, he goes, look, because he knew us, he was at QPR for a while, he come from West Ham, QPR. And he said, do you want to come in, do you coach or anything? And I said, look, you know, I've never been involved in that side of it. Well, I'll come in, be my assistant, I can trust you, you know, you're from Northern Ireland, you know, I know your brother, you know. And so I done that. We had a really good time at Wingate, because again, they're a smaller club within the non-league sort of setup. But we got them to a playoff, and the chairman was panicking because he didn't think he had the facilities to get promoted. I think he was worrying about how much money he got to spend if we get promoted. So I think he was half hoping we lost.
Go up.
But yeah, I think it was like a Bognor Regis or something beat us in extra time. But we missed a great chance just before half time. But I really enjoyed that being assistant. But then when Keith won that sort of, no, after about 3 seasons there, Keith was like, it's time for a new challenge for him, and he was travelling quite far, so I just went with him. Never really thought, oh look, will I take over as manager? And then since then I've not really sort of been interested. I've kind of stepped away a little bit. But who knows? I mean, I think the next step for me in that side of things would be manager. I think I'd like to manage the team more than, say, be that assistant or coach. But who knows? Yeah, so that was it. That was the end.
That was the career in the end.
That was the career in the end. But I'm sure there's stories I've missed or things that have happened that I haven't included. But all I can say is I wouldn't change it. If you asked me to do it again, I would. Could have been more successful, definitely. I think I could have. But, you know, what football's give me in life is, it's incredible. The places I've been, the countries I've visited, the treatment you've had, the experiences, you can't change it. You know, sometimes you think back. I said to my brother the other day, Mark got called up for a Northern Ireland first team game. And he says, do you know what, I forgot about that. He forgot that he worked onto the pitch with Del Piero, Carnavano, you know, lined up to play them in a football match. Because once you're out of it, you know, you never get back in. The managers, everyone used to say to us, this is the shortest career you'll ever have, don't waste it. And you used to kind of laugh it off. Because it can just be over like that, and it's true. You at the blink of an eye, it's over, and you just think, you know, where'd that go? And then you stop talking about it. You know, you just it's over. You know, but I wouldn't. Yeah, if I was 15 again and I was asked to go, yeah, definitely, 100%, I'd definitely go.
That's fantastic, right? That's been brilliant listening to your career and listening to all your stories and the journey you've been on. It's fantastic. Just before we finish, I've got 3 or 4 wee questions for you, just wee quick fire ones, and you can just answer them in as little or as much words as you want. Who's the best player or players that you've played with?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably name some of the Barnet players just based on I felt that, you know, I actually did play with them. You know, I could maybe fire a few names, just like one-off games. But there was a midfielder who had quite a successful career, Nicky Bailey. He had the same type of career as me. He come out of Fulham, started playing a little bit of non-league, and then was picked up from Barnet. But honestly, he was maybe 4 or 5 years. I think he was 20, but you could tell that Barnet was just like a stepping stone for him. He just did not want to lose, and he had a little bit of everything. So definitely Nicky was a fantastic footballer. Dean Sinclair would have been one in there as well, another midfielder, and of course Grazioli, I think I mentioned him earlier, prolific goal scorer. Some of the goals he scored that season, I mean, if he was doing that in the Premier League, he'd be right up there. But yeah, they're the kind of players I'd want to mention, just based on, you know, I played a lot of games with them, and they weren't just one-offs. They were consistently, you know, very good footballers. And Nicky Bailey proved it. He's had a great career. He ended up, I think, at Middlesbrough Championship, Millwall. You know, he really did have a great career. But yeah, that would be those couple of players, definitely.
And who's the best player you ever played against?
Best player I ever played against. This is not. I'll go back to that. I have to go back to that Arsenal game because my idol, let's say, or one of my favourite players, Dennis Bergkamp, was playing. So yes, I didn't sort of compete against him the whole game, but I actually kept a clip of him holding me off. I've still got it, so that was great to be even on the same pitch as Dennis Bergkamp. I mean, he is one of the greatest, if not in the Premier League. So yeah, let's throw Dennis Bergkamp in there. I'm sure he will remember my goal. Like,
not a bad name to throw in. Sure,
it's not a bad one. That's not a bad one.
You could have picked probably any of them Arsenal players.
Any of them Arsenal. I mean, I played against Fulham one time for Kettering in an FA Cup game. They had Danny Murphy played, and you know, and Peter Crouch was at QPR. But Dennis Bergkamp. You know, I mean, if he's on the pitch and you're in the other team, that's going to be the best player you've ever played against.
Yeah. And who's the best manager you played against? You played under a lot of managers, but is there one that kind of stands out that maybe suited your game the best?
Yeah, definitely,
or
again.
On with the best, or?
Definitely Paul Fairclough. I still speak to Paul sometimes. He played football the way it suited me, and he was not a in-your-face, screaming at you type of manager. I had a few of those. My type, probably personality, is slightly laid back. If you're screaming and shouting at me, you're not going to get the best out of me. He had a more sort of personal approach. If you had a bad game, might pull you aside and go, "What's going on?" You know. And yeah, Paul, definitely. I'll throw John Steele in there, even though I didn't play too much at Dagenham. I had a great relationship with John Steele. He gave me a lot of respect as a footballer, as a person, and I actually, it was funny because I wanted to do so much more for him playing for Dagenham. I felt that I let him down when he signed me, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So yeah, John Steele as well. It's a hard question. I could tell you a few I don't like, but that could be another interview.
And finally, from a man that's, you know, moved from Kilkeel to the Championship and played international and pretty much done it all, what would your advice to young players be?
I mean, in my experience, or in my experiences, it is hard work. I bet you kids get sort of annoyed at people. You got to work hard. I think the definition of working hard can be broken down. You've just got to be physically fit. You know, you've got to be practicing all the time, and you've got to make it happen for yourself. I mean, yes, you're playing in a team. I'm not going to say to be selfish on the pitch, but you've got to have an attribute or contribute to the team that's going to be different than someone else in the team, because that's what's going to get you to play. I mean, and work on that attribute. If you're a quick player, make sure everyone knows you're a quick player after the game. That is your attribute, you know. If you're someone that scores goals, you know, work on scoring goals if that's what you want to be, and find that position that suits you, you know. Obviously at a young age, try all the different positions, but when you get to a certain, like you asked me, when did you think, you know, you were going to push on? That's when you've got to start deciding, where am I going to play? You know, I'm sure Gary Neville wasn't a centre forward. You know, he's a right back. Yes, sometimes it happens, but it's working on what you're good at, you know, what gifts, what ability you have, and making sure that someone that maybe plays that position, that you're better than them. That's how you're going to be chosen. You manage, Matthew. You're going to choose your best 11, yeah, on a Saturday, because that's the 11 that you think is going to win the game. And then consistency is massive in football. You can't just have a fantastic game and then the next game think, well, I did enough in that game. And a lot of players do that. That'll give me 4 or 5 average games, and then I'll maybe throw in another good game. The consistency has to be there, whether it's like that working hard, getting the ball back, or contributing to the win. You know, you're going on that football pitch because you've been chosen to show why you've been chosen. And you can train all week, you can do all this, be brilliant in training, but at the end of the day, it's on the Saturday, and that's when you've got to produce your, and the only way you do that is by, it's another cliche, but you train how you want to play on a Saturday, and that's it. I mean, it sounds easy, but it's not. You know, it's not easy, but you want to be so tuned in on the Saturday. You want to get to that Saturday knowing that you have put every effort in you can, that when you come off on Saturday, you can hold your hand up and go, what else could I have done? You know? And enjoy it. I mean, please enjoy it. I loved it. I love football. I actually enjoy playing football more than I do watching it. And it's a short career. It doesn't last long. So enjoy it while you can, you know, and whatever level you play at. I think, you know, you asked me, you know, it's the best job in the world. And if you can make a little bit of money along the side, then, you know, what else could be better?
Fantastic. Well, Ricky, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. For somebody that's known you for so long, it's even better to, you know, sit down and hear all the ins and outs of your career. And thank you for coming on, and we wish you all the best for the future.
No problem. Thank you, Matthew. And it's been great. I've really enjoyed it.